Welcome, everyone, to LexTalk, exploring English and linguistics in Thailand.
Hello. Great to be here.
We're really glad you could join us. This is Season 6, Episode 8, and today we're doing a deep dive specifically aimed at helping you, the English teachers, right here in Thailand.
That's right. We're looking at something called action research in ELT classrooms. Um, think of it as a really practical way for teachers to drive their own professional development based on, actual results from their classes.
Exactly. It's about taking all that fantastic intuition you already have about what works and what doesn't, and just giving it a bit more structure so you can make changes based on real data from your students.
Yeah, finding out what's really going on.
Our mission today is to unpack this, look at the sources we've gathered, and show you how action research can be, well, a powerful but also a very doable tool you could start using, maybe even tomorrow.
And we've got some good examples from the sources showing how teachers are actually doing this, making it work.
Fantastic. Okay, then let's talk, let's learn, let's Lex talk.
Let's do it.
Oh, and before we properly dive in, please do follow Lex Talk on all our platforms. We're on our website, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, SoundCloud, and Spotify.
Just search for @LexTalk Podcast. Easy to find.
Yep. Okay, action research in ELT. What's the core idea the sources are giving us?
Well, at its heart, it's defined as the systematic reflective process. But the key thing is, it's by teachers, for teachers.
Right, so it's not some university researcher coming into your classroom telling you what to do. It's you, the teacher, looking closely at your own work.
Exactly. And the fundamental cycle is surprisingly simple, really, even though the name action research might sound a bit formal.
Uh-huh.
It's basically, you notice something, some kind of issue or question in your class.
Okay.
You plan a small change, an intervention to address it. You try it out.
A little experiment.
Yeah, mini experiment. Then you collect some information, some data about what happened when you made that change.
Right.
And finally, you step back, you reflect on that data and decide, okay, what next?
And the sources really seem to stress that small-scale part. You're not trying to revolutionize the entire Thai curriculum overnight.
No, definitely not. It's often focused on, one specific class, maybe one particular skill, or even just one activity that you feel isn't quite working.
So the impact is immediate, it's local,
Yeah.
right there in your teaching space.
Precisely. And that's a big difference from, say, traditional academic research. Traditional research often aims for findings you can generalize widely, publish formally.
Right, big studies, controlled variables.
Yeah. Action research is more about generating practical knowledge for you, improving your context. One source used the term reflective practitioner, which I really like.
Ah, I like that too. It sounds like someone who's actively thinking about what they're doing, not just going through the motions.
Exactly. And it links to those models of reflection people like Schoen or Kolb talk about. Action research just provides a structured way to do that reflection based on evidence you gathered yourself.
Makes reflection less abstract, more concrete.
Yeah, makes it actionable.
Okay, so we get the core idea. Notice, plan, act, collect data, reflect. A cycle. But how does a busy teacher actually do this? Can we walk through those steps a bit more practically?
Sure. Step one is identifying that classroom issue or question. And it needs to be more specific than just say, my students are bored.
Okay, so not just a general feeling.
Right. Maybe it's, why do my Mathium 2 students struggle so much with using phrasal verbs correctly in writing? Or does using pair work increase student talking time during this specific speaking activity? You need to narrow it down.
Make it something you can actually investigate. Like you said, maybe does providing pre-reading vocabulary support improve comprehension scores for my Pratham 5 class on this type of text?
Perfect example. Specific, measurable, tied to your context.
Okay.
Then step two is planning that small change, the intervention. What will you do differently?
So for the reading example, maybe you plan to pre-teach 5 key words before the next reading passage.
Exactly. It's your strategy, your pedagogical experiment. And like you said, keep it manageable, one change at a time.
Don't try to change 5 things at once or you won't know what made the difference.
Precisely. Step three is collecting data. How are you going to track what happens? This is where you put your detective hat on.
Okay, and we'll talk more about the how of data collection in a moment, but what's next in the cycle?
Step four is analyzing what happened. You look at the information you collected. What does it actually tell you? Did the scores go up? Did students use more phrasal verbs? Did they talk more in pairs?
Well, making sense of the clues, as you said.
Yeah. And then step five is crucial. Reflecting and deciding the next steps. Based on your analysis, you think, okay, did this work? Did it work the way I expected? Why or why not?
Was the impact big or small? Short term, long term?
Right. And that reflection feeds directly back into the cycle. Maybe you refine the change and try again. Maybe it worked great, you want to try it with another class, or maybe it didn't work and you need to rethink your approach or identify a different problem.
It's continuous improvement. Let's use that case study example you mentioned from the sources, the teacher in Nakan Ratchasima. How did they go through this?
Okay, yeah. So, step one, they noticed low engagement during lectures. Students seemed passive. That was the issue.
Got it. The problem.
Step two, they planned a change. They decided to switch one topic from a lecture format to a task-based learning approach. That was their intervention.
Trying something new.
Step three, data collection. The source mentioned they used two simple things: an observation checklist during the task-based lesson, just ticking off which students participated and how,
Okay, simple tallying.
and quick exit tickets right at the end of class, asking students maybe one or two questions about how they found the task-based activity.
Getting the student perspective too. Good.
Step four, analysis. They looked at the checklists. Did the number of participating students increase compared to typical lectures?
Right.
They read the exit ticket comments. Were they mostly positive about the task? Simple stuff.
Not complicated stats.
Not at all. And step five, reflection. The data suggested, yes, engagement did seem higher with the task-based approach for many students. So their reflection led them to decide to plan another cycle. Try task-based learning again with a different topic, maybe tweak the task design based on feedback, and see if the positive results continued.
That really shows how it works in practice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's zoom in on step 3 then, collecting data. What kinds of practical methods did the sources suggest for ELT teachers here in Thailand, things they can actually use?
Yeah, the good news is you don't need complex tools. The sources listed quite a few very accessible methods. Classroom observations are key, maybe using a simple checklist you make yourself.
Like ticking off how many times students use English versus Thai during group work.
Exactly, or tracking question types. Then there are student surveys or feedback forms. These can be really short, maybe just a few questions.
What was easiest artist today? Or rate this activity 1 to 5. Simple things.
Totally. Analyzing student work samples is another one. Look at their writing, their project work, even their grammar exercises. Are you seeing fewer errors of a certain type after you taught it differently?
Quizzes and error logs, keeping track of common mistakes, that's pretty direct.
Very direct. Exit tickets, as in the example, are great for quick feedback. 1 or 2 questions on a flip of paper as they leave, super efficient.
Yeah, I like those.
Student journals or reflective diaries can give you richer, qualitative insights into how they're feeling or thinking about the learning.
A bit more in depth.
And if you're comfortable and manage privacy okay, audio or video recordings of parts of your lessons can be incredibly powerful for your own reflection. Seeing yourself teach.
Oh, brave, but potentially very useful.
Yeah.
And of course, the classic pre and post tests. Did they learn the thing you taught?
Absolutely. A simple pre-test before your intervention and a similar post-test after can give you a clear measure of learning game for that specific point.
So a mix of things you count quantitative and things that are more descriptive qualitative.
Exactly. You choose what fits your question and what's practical for you to collect.
Okay, so you've collected some notes, maybe some quiz scores, some feedback slips. How do you analyze it all without needing a PhD in statistics?
Yeah, that's a valid concern. But again, the sources stress keeping it manageable. For qualitative stuff, like your observation notes or student comments, you often use thematic analysis.
Sounds technical.
It's really not. It's basically just reading through everything and looking for recurring ideas or patterns. You might highlight comments about difficulty in yellow, comments about enjoyment in green, comments about collaboration in blue.
Like sorting things into categories.
Exactly. You group similar points together and see which themes pop up most often. You're summarizing the main messages.
Okay, I can see that. And for the numbers, like checklist tallies or scores.
Often it's just basic counting and comparing. How many students raised their hands this week versus last week? What was the average score improvement between the pre-test and post-test? Did the number of errors go down? Simple arithmetic usually does the trick.
So you're looking for trends in your data for your students, not trying to prove something universally.
That's the key. And another useful idea mentioned was triangulation.
Okay.
It just means using more than one type of data to see if they point in the same direction. It makes your findings stronger.
Right. So if my observation checklist shows more students speaking English, that's one piece of data, and their exit tickets say they felt more confident speaking English, that's another piece, then those two things support each other.
Precisely. You're cross-checking. It gives you more confidence in what you think you're seeing.
Got it. Okay. The process feels much clearer now. But let's get back to the why. Teachers in Thailand, everywhere really, are incredibly busy. Why should they carve out time for this? What are the real benefits?
The sources were pretty clear on this, and it's compelling. A huge one is just increased teacher reflection and awareness. You start really noticing things when you systematically look for them.
Things you might otherwise miss in the day-to-day rush.
Exactly. Subtle patterns, student difficulties, maybe even things that are working better than you realized. And this naturally pushes your teaching to be more learner-centered.
Because you're basing decisions on actual evidence about your learners, not just habit or what the textbook says.
Right. It also makes you way more flexible and adaptable. If something isn't working, you have a process to diagnose why and try a targeted fix, rather than just feeling frustrated or guessing.
Which must be great for professional development. The sources mentioned using the findings.
Yes, you can use your findings as evidence. Maybe share what you learned at a school meeting or workshop. Hey everyone, I tried this technique for improving pronunciation, and here's the data showing how it worked with my M3 class.
Sharing practical tested ideas with colleagues. That's powerful.
And that really builds teacher confidence and autonomy. You feel more like the expert in your own classroom because you are generating knowledge about it.
Yeah, you're not just delivering curriculum, you're actively shaping it based on results.
And a nice little bonus mentioned was that students often respond really positively.
Hmm.
They feel respected when they see their teacher trying to understand their learning better and using their feedback.
That makes sense. They feel involved. So lots of upsides. But what about the downsides, the challenges? Time has to be the big one.
Time is always the elephant in the room, yes. The sources acknowledge that, feeling like there just aren't enough hours.
And maybe that feeling of, I'm not a researcher, that intimidation factor.
That too, fear of not knowing how or feeling it's too academic, and sometimes maybe not getting much encouragement or understanding from school administration.
Right, lack of support can be a barrier. So what were the solutions offered?
The biggest one, echoed across sources, is start small, really small.
Don't bite off more than you can chew.
Exactly. Focus on one tiny aspect of one lesson with one class. Maybe just track one thing for a week.
And don't try to use 10 data collection methods. Pick one or two easy ones.
Yes, like observation notes and maybe a quick student survey. Keep it manageable. Another great tip was collaboration.
Team up with another teacher.
Yeah. Work with a colleague on a shared question or problem. You can share the load, bounce ideas off each other, offer support. It makes it less lonely and potentially more effective.
And remembering who the audience is, it's primarily you. You don't have to write a formal research paper.
Right. Share your findings informally with colleagues, maybe at a department meeting. The goal is improving practice, not necessarily formal publication, unless you want to go that route later.
And briefly, ethics? Did the sources mention that?
Just the common sense things. If you collect student feedback, keep it anonymous if possible. If you plan to share results more widely, even within the school, make sure you have appropriate permissions and protect student privacy. Basic respect for the participants.
Good practice. Okay, so after you've done a cycle or two, where can this lead?
Well, you can keep refining your practice, but you might also want to share more formally. Maybe structure your findings into a simple report just for your own records, or to share.
Or contribute to a professional learning community, PLC, in your school, where teachers share their action research.
Exactly. Building a culture of inquiry. And technology can sometimes help streamline things using online survey tools or learning management systems to track certain data points.
The low tech works just fine too. Pen and paper are powerful.
Absolutely. The tools should serve the purpose, not dictate it.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive, it feels like action research in ELT isn't this big, scary academic thing at all.
Not really. It's more like teaching with intention. Plus, gathering some simple evidence to see if your intentions are matching the outcomes.
It's a structured way to be curious about your own classroom and act on that curiosity, asking what's going on here and what if I tried this?
And then actually finding out based on what you observe and collect. It's a continuous loop of learning and improving.
Taking that reflective practice idea and making it really concrete and evidence-based?
Yeah, I think one key takeaway for me from the sources is how it shifts your focus. Instead of just vaguely wondering, am I doing a good job? You're asking, what did I learn about my students' learning today and how can I use that tomorrow?
That's a really useful shift. So here's a thought for you listening. What's one small puzzle in your classroom right now? One thing that makes you think, I wonder why that happens, or I wonder if doing X would help. Could you maybe pick just that one thing and try a mini action research cycle this month? Just identify the specific question, plan one tiny change, and decide on one simple way to see what happens. What might you uncover?
It could be really illuminating. Even if the change doesn't work, you learn something valuable.
Definitely worth considering. Now, looking ahead, our next deep dive is going to tackle language and gender in communication.
Ooh, that sounds fascinating. Lots to unpack there, I imagine.
It certainly does. Another topic with real-world relevance for all of us.
Looking forward to it.
Great. So for today, we hope this look at action research has given you some practical ideas. Keep it simple, start small, and see where your own classroom inquiry takes you. Let's talk, let's learn, let's Lex talk.